Hey, what's up, everybody? Sorry it's been a long time. Besides my random movie review posts, getting back in the swing of things. I keep saying that, but nah, for real. This is an episode that I recorded last year with my friend Joey Aulisio, talking about the 10-year anniversary of The Dark Knight. I was working on this for a while. I lost the intro file for this, so this is an all new intro. Then a bunch of things with my computer and stuff stopped me from basically releasing. It's a 2-part release. We talk about some of the impact and basically just thinking about The Dark Knight. He recently at the time saw it again because they put it back out in theaters. I think they put it back out in theaters again recently. We also talk about how it, compares the contrast to the juggernaut of Marvel currently, because at the time in which it was originally released, Iron Man was also released that year, and that was the beginning. But we're 11 years in, and the landscape completely changed. We talk about some of the retro revisionist history along the lines of the merits of Nolan's work on this film and this film in terms of how it fits into the current, or at the time, superhero narrative within film, and what it's trying to say versus what superhero movies are saying currently, or have been since then, or most likely really post, at least The Dark Knight Rises. I hope you guys enjoy this. For the few people who still listen, I know there's a few, and I want to give thanks to my Patreon subscribers. I have a few. I appreciate you. I'm not going to put your names out. If you guys are cool with that, you can tell me in Patreon. For everybody who might listen, it will help to share. Also to leave reviews on Apple Podcasts. For those who might listen to this on the site or anywhere, it's on Spotify, it's on SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, of course, Stitcher, TuneIn, Google Podcasts, and a bunch of different places you can listen to it. I need to update some things like Mixcloud and such. That'll be happening soon. Yeah, I'm gonna try to do more movie review shorts. We'll see how that works out. Sometimes I get tired after writing reviews to then again record it. Man, that's a lot. Hopefully I sound better. I got a new mic. For those who don't know, I'm also on a show called Culture Trapping. Give that a listen. And I hope you enjoy. I think I said that a couple times. So peace.
All right. Been a long time.
I know, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, two plus years, right?
Yeah, man.
Because we were talking about 2015 movies or something like that the last time.
Something like that. Oh man, how you been?
I've been better. Been a shitty 2 years.
I understand that sentiment. I understand it completely. That is not lost on me. That is my feelings right now myself.
Well, there was some positives. Was I did get to see this movie twice on IMAX the last week, so I was you're one of the few people. I was all right, you get why this is such a big deal.
Yeah, I saw that joint twice. It was good.
There was
so good.
There was a lot of okay, it was the 10th anniversary. I was expecting. I don't know why I was expecting now people are really gonna get this movie, and of course not really. It was the same old shit. But I was ever since the 10th anniversary, I was I got to talk to you because you'll. You get, I think you more than most people get why this movie is important, and I think people have talked ad nauseum about it, but I always feel they talk around what's actually interesting about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man, it's I was thinking about this yesterday because I knew I was going to talk to you, because they just also recently started talking about the 20th anniversary of Blade, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Blade, you could say, started the modern superhero movie
thing, right?
Mhm.
And you get to 2008, which is the start of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but it's also like, you know, The Dark Knight comes out, and that's like the part in the middle where like everything changes. It's like for me, it's
I know
like
a lot of
that's the
people
end.
say, like you said, the Blade, like, you know, Blade kind of kicks off that, you know, unofficially, I guess, it kind of gets recognized more as starting that a couple years later.
Yeah.
But like I always felt like Blade to, I guess, like Spider-Man 3 is kind of like an era.
Yes.
Like that's
yes.
about 10-year era right there.
Yeah.
And I put Batman Begins as like, well, you know, to me, like that. I love Batman. It's actually my personal favorite of these. Like I have just such a sentimental attachment to it. But it's not, you know, it's not a radical superhero movie. It's, you know, it's the really good version of like a straight ahead superhero origin, and like it fits right in with the Raimi Spider-Mans, all that stuff.
Yeah.
It was still different enough that people are like, hey, this is kind of interesting, or I haven't quite seen this before, but it wasn't the shock to the system that the Dark Knight was. And like I was trying to piece, I'm like, okay, if that ends that era, and supposedly, you know, Iron Man and Dark Knight come out the same summer, and that's supposed to start, but I'm like, well, what exactly is, because like nothing really, because you always hear that people are like, oh, it inspired all these copycats. I'm still like looking as to what these movies are that even like attempted to do what this movie did.
It's like I think this was the point in which we saw people start calling things dark instead of things having
weight,
like stakes, themes, and ideas. And the problem I have when I checked out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe around Ant-Man, right? Because of my
you made it longer than I did. I checked out at Avengers.
Which really is the point where I started getting. I was I'm not built for this.
Remember we used to go on Sean's show and people would write us like hate mail?
Yeah.
Like, you guys are fucking assholes and whatever. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just telling you what I think. I don't know what else to say. I can't say these things are great. I can't do it. I just can't do it.
It's like, it's just like people started like, these ideas are almost like, if it isn't a simple idea in the movie, it's dark. If there's moral
if it's shot
battles
by somebody who knows how to light a scene, it's
okay. That's not even talking about the craft of making a film. Just basically within the story, like it asks you questions about society and about people in society that nothing else sits. Even The Dark Knight Rises, which I still enjoy, made me cry.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's flawed. It's flawed, but yeah. I do think it's a really interesting movie. It's nothing like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, but like it's like I didn't go to see it again in the theaters during this new run, but like I still it comes on cable and I just let it go. Like it's not something I haven't seen since. Like I still watch it on a regular basis from front to back. And just thinking like, dang, like
it's even if it's on like, you know, a censored, you know, like TBS or something, and I just happen to be in a room and it's on, like I'll just kind of stop and oh shit, it's over. Like I wound up watching the whole thing, you know, like it's not.
Yeah, it's like wow.
Even like, oh yeah, I could go put the Blu-ray on, but it's like if it's in front of me, I'm just gonna stop and be like, okay.
Yeah, man.
It could be like at a 7-Eleven. It could be playing on a TV, and then I'll have to like look at it, watch it for a couple of minutes.
I know. I need to get that 5 minutes in. And be like, all right, I can leave now. Like, oh, that was a good shot. It makes me nostalgic because it's like they were trying to do something, and then like everybody missed the point.
Minute, and not to interrupt you, I'm sorry.
You know, it's okay.
But for a minute. And not just, this goes beyond comic book movies. I feel this way just about film in general, like now. Because like I watch this now, I'm like, there is nothing operating at this level. Especially in the mainstream. Even the indie movies now are so, like, they're just kind of like little versions of like what Hollywood used to make. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't see much like, holy shit, I don't see much like aesthetically happening. And I'm not saying all movies are terrible. I'm not going to jump on a limb like that. I'm just saying that like, nothing excites me to the level, like, I think what you're hitting on, it's like this movie, when this came out, it felt like you could do anything. It's like, oh, fucking game is open, man.
Yeah.
Who's gonna take this ball now and run with it? And the answer is like nobody really did. And again, I'm not saying like everybody is allowed to, I guess, too. Like, I mean, like, I think it was just I think Nolan was just there at the right time, where like they just gave him the keys and nobody was watching and let him do what he wanted. It happened to be a huge fucking movie. Like, it could have ended a very different way, but like, I still feel like there's other people at that level, and like I don't know, everything just feels so safe, and it feels more like, I used to say that about movies back then, but now it's like even more. I'm just like, why am I even watching this? It's just like, it's the same fucking shit. I know right where it's going. Like, this was like, I remember seeing this, and I guess we'll get to like, okay, like, well, what do you remember like when you first saw it and stuff? But
yeah.
Like, I remember seeing this in the IMAX the midnight show. And I've never seen an audience react. Like, this thing was already legend already before it came out.
Yes.
Like, I remember when the scene, you know, where the Joker walks into, you know, the mob boss room, you know, and he's the joking. I remember it got a round of applause. Like, people were ready. It was like a concert. Like, I still never felt anything like this. I mean, I felt it a little bit maybe when I've seen the movie again with an audience, but like that first night, and it was, because like the first half of the movie, it operates pretty much within the realm. Like, if you saw Batman Begins, it was still like operating at that level. People were comfortable, they were having a good time. Because people like to say the movie is, oh, it's so dark, and it's not. The movie is pretty funny. It's got a lot of jokes. It's not, and it moves at like a really fast clip. It's not laborious or anything like that. And for like almost 2.5 hour movie, that's a real accomplishment. It moves at like, it's paced at a really interesting way. And there's a point in the movie where it hits where people were like, what? Like, wait a minute, like, what is this now? And you felt it you felt like the audience becoming uncomfortable during it. Like, wait a minute, this is going like a little bit further than I thought. Like, what's going on? And I still remember always like the end scene with Dent on the roof where he's got the gun to the kid's head. I remember like there were kids like crying and shit. Like, I just remember it was like you could feel like people were like, well, wait, I don't know. I don't know if I want to go here. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to go here yet. And I remember like the relief, like when like Batman actually, you know, saves the day. But it's like he saves the day, but it's like a very morally questionable victory. And like the fact that people had to walk out, like I remember Quentin Tarantino talks about this with when he watched The Thing, and he says like there was a movie that's so full of paranoia by the end, like it had nowhere else to go except out into the audience. Yeah. And I kind of feel like with this movie, like it left people, it was hitting on fears that like people hadn't been able to express. And I don't know if they were even able to articulate how the movie brought them to those conclusions or whatever, but people walked out of theater and it was a mixture of like, yes, that was amazing, but like it was like an uncomfortable, like people were just like, yeah, like that was a little too close to home for me and I can't quite articulate why. But people kept going back. It was like a thing it was like an endurance of like, I have to see this again, you know? And it was, I don't know. Can't think of anything really that's done that at this level, like operating at that, like this was the tentpole movie of Warner Brothers that year. This has the biggest character possibly in all of pop culture history. Yeah. And it's operating on all levels. It's a great blockbuster. It's a great, you know, it's a decent crime film. It's a great superhero movie. It's just this really interesting artistic, you know, it's really idiosyncratic vision of like this director taking this next step in his career, the technology too, like no one had ever shot an IMAX, like, so people were taking in so much, but like it just worked, especially in the United States. It hit on something that like I think movies have been trying to get at, but had not had the tools to confront. And I don't even know if they went in like seeking out to do that per se, but it happened. And like sometimes that's just the way things work out. And like that's what I'm more seeing. Like I just haven't seen much operating at this level that's hit the zeitgeist, like the culture, the way this did. And like that's more. I'll shut up for a bit.
No, I think it got paid away. I think things drastically changed once Marvel started doing 2 movies a year. So there's a point where it's like, because that was an interesting summer. Like, you know, I was still in it. Like, on superheroes, I want to see these movies on screen. Iron Man's finally getting made the way I always dreamed it to get made. Like, I was, even a teenager, I was like, yo, it got to be Robert Downey Jr. because he be on drugs and stuff. He's the only one that can make it work. Right, this is how, you know, this is kid Julian Brain. But so I'm getting there.
Well, you even wonder that now. Like, I don't know if in today's climate if they would have even cast him in that role.
Oh no. It's a
too much baggage.
Nobody really gave a shit back then. Yeah, it's a totally different world. But when you get to the end of that and then you see like, oh, it's Nick Fury and they're gonna try to put it together, then you watch Hulk, it's like, oh, Iron Man's at the end of Hulk, like, oh my god, and then it like it waited, and then you get to we get to Avengers and it's just like, oh, all right, so you saved all the third acts for one movie, okay, all right. Then I got to a point was like, what is this saying? And then like more franchises started coming, like Star Wars comes back. And I'm like, this has nothing to say. Like, the prequels, as terrible as they are...
I'll go to bat for the prequels.
No, here's the thing. The further along we move into this current millennium, or this current century, the prequels are making a lot more sense in what he was trying to say. Like, I was like, this is bad. And then lately, the last couple of years with their politics, I'm like, yo, he was saying something, and it was a point.
See, people should have paid attention about those trade routes. Nobody was listening.
Like it's like people really need to go back and really like, explore this idea. But I'm talking about Batman right now. It was just something where I think with Nolan, he finally got this shot to really like go all out, right? And then him and his brother, they got to write this story. And I think what really works with Batman, which gave it precedent from the comics, is that it allows creators to talk about their ideas about America and capitalism and crime in a way that's good and bad depending on the politics of the creator, or even if they don't have any politics, but just to explore ideas.
It's a great canvas to like throw your ideas on.
Yeah, and he's great.
Like Batman is really hard to break.
Yes.
Like you can take him pretty fucking far before people are like, all right, this is too much. Yeah. And even then, you look back and you're like, oh, still pretty interesting. Like it's a really tough character to fuck up.
Yes.
Or just to destroy. Like this. Like you can read like Batman somewhere. I can read a kind of like middle of the road Batman comic and like half the art's pretty good or whatever. It's like, that was fine. That was fun. Mm-hmm. Like, and I don't, or I can read something, like Dark Knight Returns or something where I'm like, okay, this is a creator at like the top of their game, like putting everything into this and like really seeing how far they can take this idea.
And he has something to say.
I think like, and it's like either way, I'm still pretty satisfied with like either thing. I mean, there's some people, I think there's people that have, obviously, did go too far or like they just, whatever they tried to put onto the character just didn't fit. Yeah. But it's pretty tough, man. It's pretty like Batman could be in a rainbow costume. He could be, he could be in the 1930s. He could be in medieval times. He could be in modern day. He could, like whatever it is, it kind of works. And there's not a lot of characters. Like Superman doesn't work that way, or like a lot of other characters. They don't have that vessel where you can kind of that's conducive to like what a real like auteur, a real idiosyncratic creator can come on and put their stamp on it and not break it. That's rare.
Yes.
I can't think of any other characters really that like that in comics or otherwise where like you really could test the limits and it's like fair game.
Yeah, it's a lot of old characters. Like you could do some things with like, Sherlock Holmes or like James Bond, depending on the film. Like James Bond in all the movies.
James Bond's pretty pliable to the era and whatever. Yeah. Whoever's on it, you can get a lot of mileage out of that.
And it's just like. See, my thing is, like, I think we did see some really good effects short term. It's just now, 10 years later, a lot of that has been wiped away with just, like, everybody wants to be super safe. And The Dark Knight wasn't safe at all. As you said earlier, it could have fell flat. Like, I would have loved it regardless. But I didn't expect it to make $1 billion. Like I didn't expect.
People forget about this too. Like I mean, we're going to talk about this from every angle on this fucking thing. But like that's the thing too. Like people forget. Like now movies make $1 billion all the time. It's because the industry has built them to go that way. Yes. Like if they don't, it's a surprise. Like when this made $1 billion, it was like, movies did not make $1 billion.
Especially
like
not
you had to work to get that $1 billion. Like, so it's like, that's an earned $1 billion. There was no, they weren't inflating fucking ticket. I mean, there was only a handful of IMAX theaters in the world. So it's like, that couldn't even have accounted for like the bump. It was like, no, people were going to see this like over and over and over again through the full. Like, I remember I saw this, the first IMAX show, I saw it a bunch of times over the summer, and like they ran it like all the way until like October or something. I remember I went to the final show too of IMAX, and then they put it back in the theaters like around Oscar time too. So it was like, and it killed. It was still doing great business, and like it's one too. Like anytime it's brought back, because I live it. Like they don't. I think they should show it more in New York. Cause I'm a big rep house guy. Like I'm always going to see old movies in the theater again.
Yeah.
And they don't bring this one back. Maybe they will now, but I'm saying, like, I remember it was funny when the 10th anniversary came up. I was fucking going ballistic to anyone who would hear me. I'm like, this is fucking disrespectful. Like, how is not one New York theater be showing this? This is ludicrous. This is insane. I'm like, and then like they announced like, oh, IMAX is gonna bring back like the 70 millimeter print and show it for a week. I was like, okay, prayers were answered on that one. But I was like, come on, for real? Like, people forget like this was an important movie, and I mean, in the 10 years since, I mean, people have done their damnedest to knock it off its spot and be like, this wasn't that good.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say how.
And me and you were like fucking warriors during the last day. Like, remember those? There were periods where like everyone's like, yeah, that's a shitty movie, isn't it? We're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And like, it seems like, I think it's come back around now where like it's been enough time that people have seen enough of these like assembly line fucking movies that they're like, okay, this was it. And like, I went twice this past week. It was sold out both times. Like every show was they extended it for like almost another whole week. Like people are fucking, they still love this movie, and like, and the audience was with it. Like, it plays on an audience in a theater. It plays so much differently even than at home. Like, it gets you in a way that few movies do. And so I'm saying, like, I'm happy to see it's come back around and, like, people are appreciating it more. But I still think the way people talk about it, I don't think does it a service. Like, I still feel like, especially, like, you want to talk about it through, like, a political lens or whatever. Like, I remember people when it came out, oh, this is clearly like a response to 9/11. Like, I guess it is. But I really feel like this movie was more, I think it's more relevant to what's going on now than it was then.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like watching that film, to me, everybody was like, it's about George W. Bush. It's about 9/11. I was like, nah, these people read the news.
It is about like a post 9/11 world, but how could it not be? It was
everything
made,
is. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think it's dealing with anything specific. I think it's more talking about like, well, like you think this is bad now, like this is, think about if this chaotic element, like if we made room for this element to come in. And like I haven't think about this again, obviously. I hate when people fucking have to compare everything to Trump and shit all the time. But like, unfortunately, it's an example where I'm like, it's pretty prescient. Like, it's hard to ignore when you watch it now. Where it's like there's a like like to me, like when I watch that movie like now, it tells me like what happens in the world when like nothing means anything anymore, like where everybody's a liar, where every institution is corrupt, everything doesn't work, and like there's no one, and there's nothing, life starts to not make any sense anymore. It's like, well, everything is so corrupt, fuck everything then. And when people become so corrupt and so complicit in the corruption, there's disruptive figures that could come in and exploit that. And you look at the Joker. The reason the Joker is so effective is that he never really is lying about anything he says. He's actually telling the truth all the time. Doesn't mean his intentions are good. Doesn't mean that he's a figure you should trust. But he's not lying. And I still think to this day, like I remember even seeing the scene. Like, it's still shocking. This scene is in a fucking like Warner Brothers like superhero movie, but like that scene in the hospital when he hands Harvey Dent the gun, and he's like, like what happens if I said a gangbanger is gonna get shot or a bus full of soldiers be blown to smithereens? Nobody would panic. Yeah. And he's like, well, I say like one mayor gets shot, everybody loses it. But it's like you hear that now, and I mean at the time, I mean it was. I remember it probably was a chilling sentiment at the time, but you hear that now, and it's tough to be like, hey, it's making a lot of sense. But it's like, what if that is coming out of a figure you can't rely on? And you look at stuff like people, everyone's still like, oh, how did Trump get elected? It's like, well, a problem was like he actually was kind of telling the truth about stuff for a minute. Doesn't mean his intentions were good.
He was telling a certain viewpoint. My thing with Joker is that's the only Joker I think in media where he's not actually a cartoonish villain but he's an antagonist where he brings about a different viewpoint on ideas about the institutions.
Well, he's challenging the conventional wisdom.
Yeah, he's like, all this stuff. And why do you say all this
stuff? It's like, well, nobody else is doing this. It's like no one else has brought. You could tell, like, no one has brought these points. Like, no one's actually thought about the world this way. And when you expose all that stuff, again, like, he's exposed, like, all these people actually are corrupt, including, Gordon and Dent. They're all complicit in this shit. It's like they're trying to do it because they think they're doing it for the right reasons. But they're not really right. Like, they are just continuing a system that's bad. And when the Joker comes in and points out he's not wrong, doesn't mean I want him in power doing what he wants to do, but it's hard to ignore when he's telling the truth and no one else is, including the good guys.
And the thing of it
it's like,
oh my bad. Yeah, I just think that the interesting thing is, like, I don't even know if he actually wants to be in power. He just wants to show, like, not only did Batman disrupt everything, so this is possible to challenge everyone's ideas and to show you to the system. And then what I like about the Joker is that the more times you watch the movie is that everything happened the way he planned it to happen.
Well, one of the things I think that encapsulates, I think what to you is like the most disturbing scene involving the Joker in the movie? I have two. One is just a shot.
I'm not even disturbed by the Joker anymore. Sometimes I
feel like this is just real life now.
Like, I'm to the point where it's like, yo, like, he got a point. So it's like, my thing, I think my favorite Joker scenes are the point where he's talking to all the criminals and he's like, yo, that guy's gonna snitch. You don't understand. Yeah, he's gonna squeal. He's like, you worried about the ideas of jurisdiction and airspace and all this stuff, and the Batman doesn't care about any of this. The Batman doesn't care about laws. The Batman doesn't care about jurisdiction. The Batman's gonna get him, and he's gonna squeal. And
he was right.
He was completely right. And my other part is that when he burns all the money in front of the crooks, because it's like every institution he doesn't care about, he's gonna turn it all down. It's like the criminals will mess your stuff up. The justice system, I'm gonna kill the judges. The government, I'm gonna disrupt that. The cops, I'm gonna show that they're dirty because I'm gonna set up Harvey Dent to get messed up, which is gonna mess up the AD. And then I'm gonna show you that the ideas of who's good and who's bad is fucked up. And I'm gonna
put
bombs.
Up, it's meaningless.
Yeah, because the fucking Debo from Friday is the only reason why no one's blown up. Like, I'm like, it's nothing wrong. That is why Batman loses, right? Like, he's getting proven right the entire movie. All you are pieces of shit. That's what I take from the movie now. 10 years later, it's like, damn, the Joker was on some real good job, Nolan's. That's what I just sit back and like.
But like, woo! To me, like, that's how you make, though, an effective villain, because it's just like, if there's not a kernel of truth to what they're doing or why they're doing it, I just feel like then they're just like they're just a faceless bag. There's nothing really interesting about them. Well, yeah. And again, to varying degrees, like, I mean, you look at like Ra's al Ghul in Begins. It's like I do think he believes in the mission. He really thinks like he's making the world a better place, and like that's why he's out. So that's why he's interesting.
Yeah.
Bane's a gray area. Because I mean he does say a bunch of shit, but most of it doesn't really matter because he was gonna blow everybody up anyway. But he's still like not wrong about a lot of the stuff he's saying.
Yeah.
So it's like you can make like, I just feel like the most interesting villains of all time in all of fiction, like there has to be a kernel of truth to what they're saying. And I think the reason the Joker still resonates so much, for better or worse, is, I mean, he really doesn't lie about anything he says. You could disagree with the way he goes about it, obviously, or like the ramifications. And like I'm obviously, I'm not here. Like, I mean, there's some people out there like, oh, he's the hero. I'm not gonna fucking ride with that. But
I don't know if there's any hero at the point of the end of the movie. I don't know if there's any actual hero. Like, Batman had to.
I do think the movie it does think Batman, Bruce Wayne is trying to do stuff for the right reason.
Yes.
I don't think it's saying I don't think it's saying that at all.
Yeah.
I don't think the movie, though, is endorsing the idea of Batman in any way, though. Like, at least how he's carrying it out. I think the movie's very... That's why I thought it was so weird when people... You see, like, a lot of, like, really, like, left-wing people be like, oh, this is, like, you know, a Republican's wet dream. I'm like, I don't know, the movie seems fairly critical of the idea of vigilantism and of, like, you know, police and this stuff. So I don't really see how you can really say... I don't think the movie has... I think the reason this movie is also successful, it's not an ideological movie. It's not telling you what to think about anything. It's telling you to think about stuff.
Yeah.
Like, that's a completely different thing. It's not telling you, like, this is right or wrong. It's leaving it pretty open. I mean, there's certain things where, yeah, it clearly, like I said, I think it is trying to portray, you know, in the right way. I think, like he's saying, like, you know, I think Bruce was out here just trying to do the right thing. It unfortunately blew up in his face. He didn't realize the forces he was messing with. And I think that's what it's a cautionary tale in that way about, like, you know, really think hard about how you're going to approach the world before you do it.
Yeah.
Like, don't just go out there and assume you're right and it'll all work out. Because sometimes the consequences can be so much worse than you could ever imagine. And I do think, like, that's... I don't think the movie is saying at the end, like, oh, yeah, it's great, like, this plan that they're doing to save... Is it great? Clearly it's not. The next movie clearly proves that.
Yeah, it's sad. Like, he lost. What I liked about... When I got to the end of the movie, when I first saw it, I was like, oh, snap. Batman lost. Like the little James Gordon's little soliloquy to his son, which we never see his son again.
Oh, there's a good reason for that.
Yeah.
That wife is like, we're getting the fuck out of here. And everything you got.
Like his soliloquy as Batman runs away from the police, as he effectively takes the fall for murder to create a lie that puts in place like a certain set of policies and laws that actually doesn't make anything better.
Good. They sound good, but they're not good.
And then like he messes his moral high ground up as soon as he took away everyone's privacy. Like that was great, and the fact that Lucius had is like, yo, I know we got to get these bombs, but we done. Like, and you know, he wipes himself up by setting up the thing to explode at the end, but like he already crossed the line. And Batman knew he crossed the line. That's why it's not a he lost Harvey, he lost the line, he lost Rachel, he lost the idea of giving up, of stopping this, of like it's all messed up now. Like nothing's the same. It's never going to be the same. And like I've yet to see a superhero movie since go that hard. The closest was Logan, but I need to watch that.
But yeah,
it's a great
I don't
movie.
think it's in the same class. But
I need to watch it 5 years from now when we're kind of out of the realm of.
The thing that's funny with Logan, I was talking my friend Chris Johnson. We talk about movies all the time, and we kind of laugh because we liked Logan, but we were kind of laughing because we had watched we'd rewatched Dark Knight back in July or whatever. We were talking about it, and you were saying it's funny how like the end of the Dark Knight is an ode to the movie Shane. Like that's a reference to the end of the movie Shane. And I thought it's funny. I'm like, well, this is like the real difference here. Is like the Dark Knight makes a scene that still to this day most people have no idea is a reference to Shane. And it's like in Logan, they actually watch Shane.
Yes.
And then quote Shane. I'm like, that's the difference. Like, everyone likes to talk, oh, you know, the Nolans aren't very subtle. I'm like, well, they're a little more subtle, I think, than you give them credit for.
Yeah, Logan went full force, like, hold on, you guys don't get this, but I'm really retelling Shane and Wolverine. I need you to understand this, so Professor X is going to tell Laura that this is really Shane.
He's going to give you a Wikipedia entry on Shane the movie, and then the little girl is going to literally quote the dialogue you heard earlier.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah. It's funny. Good movie. I like the movie. It's one of those things where I'm like, yeah, not quite there. Like, it's not quite the same class, in my opinion.
It was close, though. I was like, somebody tried.
I'm closer than most.
Somebody tried.
There's a couple. I mean, there's only a handful of like superhero movies. I think some are controversial. I know we disagree on a couple of them. Like, I really like Man of Steel and Batman versus Superman, but like, I understand like that's not the popular.
I don't hate Batman versus Superman.
Did you ever watch the longer cut?
No, I still need to watch it, but I say
You do like it. I think you'd like, no, this actually is a pretty good movie.
like I don't hate that movie. People hate it. I just like it's the same level of quality as the rest of the superhero movies, and that's where I get into my.
I was
arguments.
really shocked with the reaction to Justice League, because I saw Justice League and I was like, yeah, this isn't good, but like it's about as good as these other movies people seem to like. Like I was like, I was really surprised when it was like, this is the worst thing I've ever seen. I'm like, I don't know, it wasn't good. Like I didn't like, well, certainly wasn't made for me. But like, and it's funny too, because I remember I saw it that opening weekend where like every show was sold out. Like the audience I saw it with like applauded for it and shit at the end. And I was really surprised that now it's gone down as like, what a train wreck. And I'm like, it wasn't good. Like I would have loved to just see the regular Zack Snyder version of it, obviously. But I'm just saying that like, it was about, they made the movie you people claim that you want them to make, and then they made it, and then you're like, oh, this sucks too. It's like, okay, whatever.
They can't win, and I think. And I think this started with The Dark Knight. I think that there's certain ideas and fandom ideologies within these core superhero houses that was spurred on, before we was alive, with the whole Marvel Zombie and the DC fan. And I think those ideas, thanks to the people who write reviews and press, if you want to call it press, but their editorial think pieces and their geek nature and their videos,
fake news, as it were.
It's all editorial. It's not like when I go to a website, right, a comic or a geek based website, they don't actually have news about Hollywood industry. They have links to THR or Variety or Deadline because they don't care about this. All they care about is what they're fans of, and I think there were so many fans of Marvel Comics, especially within the generation of post 80, right? The late Gen Xers and millennials got so into the Marvel Comics idea, the Marvel Comics, that when they became fans and they started writing all these blogs and stuff, they started bringing some of those biases into it. So it's like, wow, originally they couldn't hate on The Dark Knight because,
Batman's always been that one character that, even among people I know that were like Marvel zombies. Like, I fuck with Batman though.
He's Batman though. Like, he fire all the time. Somebody gets their hands on it, and they make something like really interesting. So it's like you want to hate on it, but you can't. And I think what happened is as we got into the post Avengers full serial nature of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I think what happens is and this has been carried over into other types of movies, especially as especially as the American market goes so heavy for international market that they won't talk about anything too deep and they just make basically theme park rides. It's like, yo, this joint gotta make you laugh. All the colors gotta be bright. And at the end, we're going to try to fake it like there's some type of real, some real stakes, but really, it's all happy and the hero wins at the end. And it's like, good guys win in the end, guys. It's like when you watch a really long episode of G.I. Joe. Like, when you watch G.I. Joe, the movie, it's just like, oh man, Duke got hit in the shoulder with the snake from Serpentor. He looks like he might be dead. But G.I. Joe won, and they beat Cobra Live. Yo, Joe! Duke's alive. Hooray! That's what I feel when I get to it. It's like, guess what? Like, when you watch Transformers the movie, Optimus Prime died, and all the toys you had died on screen. And guess what? The whole goddamn Transformers universe is messed up. You watch the next season, Rodimus Prime sucks as a leader. Like, that's the way I think about it. It's like, they get to this point and they just talk about Marvel movies make them feel good. Some of the Star Wars movies either make them feel good or make them into terrible people because they hate on the fact it's not like Luke Skywalker and a bunch of white dudes saving everybody, and it just becomes this big pit of noise. That is a fucking
horrible movie though.
Oh, it's not. My thing with my thing is every other movie's all right. So it's like The Force Awakens wasn't good.
That was the only one I've liked of these new Star Wars.
I like Rogue One. That's my movie. They all die at the end. It's the Dirty Dozen. I'm okay with this. I'm fine with that. I look at Star Wars as what it was made out of. It's like adventure serials. So when I watch,
I didn't hate Solo.
I love Solo. Like,
I thought it was fine. It's not movie. Like I didn't think it was like great, but I thought it was fine. Like, I didn't really see why that one was the one that people were like, that's it, enough now, we can't have it. I'm like, this is the one that really, like, this is the one that got people so upset.
It wasn't The Last Jedi in a movie where, like, LeBlanc got Finn goes back to his arc from the first movie within the first 10 minutes. Like, he has to find a reason to fight again? Like, really? We're going to do this whole arc over again. He has to deal with Captain Phasma again. He has to do all this again. Like, yeah, that's an entirely... Yeah, I'm getting even off my point, but I just think...
That was my fault. I threw you
Nah, it's like, ooh... But it's like, it's still Disney, right?
I just can't stand when people are like, oh, you didn't like The Last Jedi. You must be, like, racist.
You're
I'm like,
terrible.
no, it's just a shitty fucking movie. That's why I don't like it.
Oh, that makes me... Yo, there's nothing that makes me angry that people's like, if you dislike The Last Jedi, something, you're like, you're a terrible person. It's like, oh, no, that movie was trash. And I love Rian Johnson. He made a trash-ass movie. It's all right. I'll see his non-Star Wars movies again. It's all good. But don't call me like that I'm a misogynist because I ain't like a movie that nobody did anything that made sense. Like, that movie's just bad. Especially after I saw Solo and I was like, I love this movie. Give me more of this shit. I had Donnie
Solo at least was like kind of fun.
That joint was a good Ron Howard movie. Like, that was a good middle grade Ron Howard.
I'm curious. That's what I will always be curious about. It sounds like the original version would have been I think like probably exactly what they like needed.
A super joke.
It's like, well, not just a super joke, but like it would have had a lot of personality. I think like it would have felt a lot different than these movies, and I think they got scared and like they obviously went in this direction. I think the movie they made is fine, but I'm just saying that like it's funny now. Like I wonder if they regret that now, considering how bad that. Maybe we should have just rolled with what was there and just seen how it went. But I don't know.
Nah, I don't think they regret anything because they put out 10 movies in 12 months. That's true.
Like, but it was the first time that people, like the public was, and especially like the the journalistic establishment of film was able to actually point at them and be like, you failed.
I bet you if that movie would have came out in the usual space of December, November, it wouldn't have got hated on.
It was also too short,
I think. It was too close to The Last Jedi fiasco, and people was too excited from Black Panther, and they were too excited going into Avengers. And it's like usually Disney doesn't.
I was really like, was there an Avengers movie this year? And I was like, oh yeah, I guess there was.
Yeah. It made a lot of money. Like, we made a whole bunch of money. Like, it's out there. But like, usually they don't mix up their like lanes. They almost like they kind of program the audience. It's like, hey, when it gets warm outside, it's Marvel season.
I think they were just like, this has got so much like bad press on it. Because like it had been covered so heavily, they just kind of wanted to like, all right, let's just drop it out here and like quietly kind of move on from this. But I think you're right. Had they just waited longer, would there had just been a little bit of a lull?
Yeah,
people just went to see it. So instead, it had all this bad press going in, and then it was like too close to these other releases, too close to the previous stars. So like people are like, they're saying this thing sucks. It probably sucks. I'm just not going to see it. And like that was the end of it. I think
if they would have put it out in October, like next month. I bet you it would have done well.
This month, man. This month's like a...
Oh, yeah. This month is trash. If they would have put it in the 2 months, there's no Disney movie? Because that's when it hit me.
Because people would have forgot about the controversy. Like, it would have kind of just, 8 other things would have happened since then that would have just taken the heat off of it.
It'd been 11 months.
People like, oh, yeah, Star Wars. I like Star Wars. And they just would have went to see it.
Yep. And there's nothing out. It would have made a killing. September, it would have killed all of September. It would have just destroyed it. It would have made like $500 million easy. But that's, Monday. This is Monday morning, 6 months later, quarterbacking. Like, but it's like, it is. But it's like, all this thing with the Dark Knight, I think, doesn't help.
I'll give us credit, though, on this front, though. I think we're very good at, like, switching gears. Like, I don't think a lot of people are. Like, that's the only way they know how to talk about movies thing is just, like, from it made money. And, like, I feel like we understand, like, things, like, there are different departments that work on different things. There's different factors. And, like, I can talk about the artistic, merits of something, and then just talk about, this is where they screwed up in their promotion. And, like, it doesn't affect my view of the other thing.
Oh, yeah,
I think for a lot of other people, they don't know. They only know how to talk about stuff from that perspective, or they let it mix up when they're trying to actually talk about the thing as a piece of art. They can't not talk about the promotion. And, and I think we're pretty good at jumping gears, I think, and being like, okay, like this is it from that perspective. Now we're going to switch.
Oh,
and I think a lot of people can't do that, especially nowadays, worse than ever. I think I don't remember like any other period in time being like where I'm like, these people have no clue. Like they're just talking about things that have nothing to do with each other.
Nothing to do with like promote like.
And like everybody's a conspiracy theorist now about like them. Like, oh, clearly what the studio is doing. It's like, no, that's probably not the case.
Like you don't even know how studios work, B. Like that's why I sit back. It's just like you guys are seriously talking about this. And it's like, I guess I get to the point now with the idea of criticism and like the film critics and tomato score and all that type of stuff. It's just like, I'm like, people, first of all, they don't understand the fact that critics get to a point because they watch first of all, if you're a critic and you're on your job, right, minimum, you're going to see 52 movies in a year. That's a movie a week. And most people
now they're loading people up with screeners.
With screeners, so
now you gotta watch. You have to go see a movie plus watch like 3 or 4 other ones.
Yeah, so
in your spare time.
Yeah,
you're getting paid like a fraction of what you used to get paid to do it.
Or yeah, like you're getting paid like almost nothing.
Peanuts.
And like, so you're watching all these movies, and people don't understand like in anything. Let's say like if you eat like in a month, if you eat a hamburger a day from like every different place, you're gonna be able to say like, all right, so this is a better burger than another burger. Like this meat is better than that meat. This cheese on this burger with this lettuce and this bread is better than like this. Like you're gonna know the difference, and you can say like which one's better and which one might be made better. And people don't understand it's like that's like the first stage of like criticism. Then you can get into like the whole ideas of the art and the craft of making a movie. Like the images on the screen, it's like, yo, the lighting matters. Like, the way stuff moves matter. The sound matters. Like, the placement of the actors. Like, all these things matter. And I think at a certain point, we got a bunch of people that's just yelling. It's like, I just see my favorite character on screen, so it's good. And to me, the Dark Knight was just almost like, and they try to say it was like a bad thing at the time. It's like, this is just like a Michael Mann movie with a dude in an outfit. I'm like, that's not saying like I love Michael Mann, but just saying that it's a crime movie isn't bad.
I think that's like, I get why people, I remember people saying that too is like a thing, and I'd be like, I don't know, I still watching now, I still feel like that's a vast like understatement on what the thing actually is.
Yeah. Like
it's an element, yeah. Sure, but it's not really it's a crime movie sort of, but like I think even saying that, like that thing too, like in the middle of this movie, I think like Chris Nolan kind of becomes a different filmmaker. Like it happens like in the middle of the movie. Like he starts I think he becomes more enchanted with like the idea of like how they told stories in the silent era.
Oh yeah,
and I think he becomes very engaged with, like you said, like the idea and like the symbolism of like certain characters and certain things, and I think he really got into this when he started shooting in the IMAX, where you had to really pay more attention to what every actual shot was going to be, and you see it really progress after this. Like I think he actually becomes a much better like visual storyteller in future movies even than he is here, but like he was known as the guy who wrote really tight scripts and like, where everything made sense and this and, and stuff. And then I feel like in the middle of this movies where he kind of comes to the idea, like, he kind of divorces from that a little bit. And like, yeah, I'm not that concerned if this is realistic or not. I just think this is a great idea and I'm going to go after it. And like you really feel, I feel like there's a point in this movie, like there's some people point out, like you mentioned the thing where like Gordon's giving that speech to his son, like, well, that's not very realistic. He wouldn't tell his son that. It doesn't matter. It's a great fucking movie scene.
It is,
and it lifts off the ground. Like you feel the movie literally like lifting off the ground. Like this is fucking incredible. Like the music's coming in, like the drums are banging. He's like, and it's just like. It doesn't matter because it's great filmmaking. It doesn't matter if it's like, oh, that's what he would really say. And there's things like that all over this movie that people keep pointing out as like, plot hole. That's what people love to say, plot holes. I don't even know what the fuck that means.
I don't even know if people understand what plot hole means anymore. Like, what the fuck is a plot hole now? Like, you call everything that you don't get or everything that isn't blatantly stated to you,
or you don't like,
expository dialogue is now a plot hole. It's like, nah, man, like, life don't work that way. But I agree. I do think, like,
but like, you see this and you go to like Inception, and like Inception, obviously he has a whole, like, people talk about, it's funny, I always laugh at this. They say like, oh, like there's too much talking and Nolan explains too much stuff. But it's like Inception has literally like a 40-minute silent set piece cross-cutting across like 4 or 5 different temporal like planes.
I love that movie, bro.
It's like, who else did that in recent years or is doing that now?
Ooh, oh my god, like.
And like, I think that's what Rises too. I think that's the thing that I think I don't think Rises works at all as like a movie that makes sense. Like that makes sense in like the realistic sense.
No.
But it makes sense from it makes sense from like if you're watching it as a movie told like, told visually and told like through thematic, like it's thematic. Actually make a lot of sense.
Oh yeah.
And like you follow the movie that way, and like I think that's the thing with that movie. Like that's what was interesting to him. Is like these kind of themes are interesting, these kind of set pieces are interesting, and like that you follow. I don't think he was. Again, that was a movie. That's a weird movie because like his brother wrote a fucking novel and handed it to him, and then like left the project, and he was just like, all right, I guess I gotta like figure out, because I can't film this whole fucking thing, and then like kind of just picked and choose. But like, I think if you watch that movie, it's interesting. It's very ode to like a Fritz Lang movie from the 30s or early 40s, or like Erich von Stroheim, or all these like silent storytellers. And then you get to like Interstellar, I think too, which is there's a lot of exposition about science shit, but you need it there. I don't know how you could make the movie without it there. But I think it's very reliant on just images. Like I think it's told pretty well through the images. And then Dunkirk is practically a silent movie.
Oh yeah.
So like I feel like you've seen and it starts in this movie. It starts in that second half of the movie, where you can really see that. And I think that's why like people complain, the scores, so I can't hear the dialogue. It's like, well, you don't usually need to hear it. You don't usually need to hear what they're saying. You can follow what's on the screen.
Yeah, you can watch it.
Yeah. But there you go. I don't know where I was going.
No. Like I agree. Like thinking it back, I think the halfway point is after Rachel dies and you have the image of Batman standing over the debris. Yeah. And then at that point, you're completely right. Because then it becomes like really big screen focused. Because then after that, you get the shot of like, you also get the shot of the Joker with his head out of the police car, which is one of my most favorite pieces of cinematic film.
It's very Blade Runner
ever.
Scene with where Roy Batty like busts out the wall.
Bro,
and like puts his head out in the water. It's very similar to that shot.
Bro, it's like that joint, and then like it keeps going, and it's just like by the time you get to the end, it's ideas, it's fluid, like Batman running between the things and the people chasing him. You can't totally get it. You see the dogs and the barking, and he's just like, and then it's just it's like. And he's our Dark Knight, and then it goes black, and then you see the fucking logo, and it's just like, damn, like, he ain't never been nothing like this ever, bro. Like, you walk out of that theater, and I walked out of that theater like 3 to 4 times. Like, I saw that joint 2 times in IMAX, Smithsonian IMAX, so that joint, like, the big screen, Museum of Natural History. I was like, I took the homies once, I was like, nah, we gotta go see, but we already seen it. It's like, you ain't seen it like this. And they sat there. It was all late. They was getting tired. I was like, bruh, you don't understand. Like yo, like, hey, you just said something. It's like, I've been searching for that high ever since. And
I mean, there's been a few like this. Like I'm trying to think of movies. Like there's a couple. Again, they're mostly Nolan movies that I like.
Oh yeah, like Inception. Oh yeah, I'm all about it. Like.
Well, Inglourious Bastards was a big one for me. That was
Inglourious Bastards was a beautiful film.
Yeah,
it's still my least favorite Quentin Tarantino movie, but
I think it's his best movie. Yeah,
I fuck with Jackie Brown. I'm a big.
Well, Jackie Brown. Yeah, Jackie Brown would be my second. And True Romance is my favorite thing he's written. But I'm just saying that like that movie had that's what I thought. I'm like, oh, we gonna have a movie like this every year.
Yeah.
Because like Inglourious Bastards came out that next year, and it had that. I don't know if it wasn't quite as zeitgeist shattering as The Dark Knight was, but it was an experience. And like I was like, this was something, like that was a trip, man. That was great.
Yeah,
like, it really was it was these things you can only see as a movie. Like movies still had a place in the culture as like they have a thing that they occupy that they can do that other things can't do. And people still mostly respected that. And then like I said, 2010 had Inception, Scott Pilgrim. There was a whole bunch of these really big mainstream, like kind of really idiosyncratic, works of art that were these big, Hollywood movies. There was still a handful of good movies that I liked that year. But I mean, at that level, and then kind of as you go along, I'm like, I get there's less and less, and there's a handful of things, but like again, there's movies I like a lot, but like they're not operating at that level. Like I keep saying that, but it's like I'm not expecting any big studio movie any year to give me the feeling.
Wow you.
Yeah. Like, I think if it's decent, I'm like, oh, that was a nice surprise.
Yeah, I think I got that out of Inception, Interstellar for sure. Skyfall was the first time I saw a James Bond movie where I saw somebody care about the camera, like in the modern era. Like Sam Mendes did something. I was like, yo, he must have saw Dark. But I'm just saying, like they got the team together. Like that movie felt like they saw Dark Knight.
But Skyfall is a movie in which there's a guy that's like, I really like The Dark Knight. I just want to like take all my favorite shots of The Dark Knight and put James Bond in them.
Yeah, and I was totally in for it because I'm like, all right, like you, like I guess that was the only movie I like. I said, I was like, yo, y'all saw The Dark Knight, and y'all was like, we got to make a James Bond movie like this, and I was like, and I'm like, I'm here for this. Keep doing, like, yeah. If you guys want to if you want to copy in a way that's not like copying it, like the way people say people's copying The Dark Knight, but if you just like, yo, we got to step our game up with our shots and our music cues and our like framing and our pacing. I'm okay with that. It's just now I'm getting to the point. It's like I'm seeing a lot of movies. I'm like, yo, this is kind of like even some of the movies that win like big awards, like the big indie movies. Like when that movie Brooklyn came out, everybody was like, it's so great. I'm like, so it's just
I like that movie.
It's not a bad movie, but I'm like, I literally I could watch that on my TV and I'm good. Like there's a lot of movies where a lot of people talk about a lot of things and I see it as like, nah, I could watch that on TV. Like this could be like, and this is not knocking HBO because I think HBO makes amazing films. So I'm just like, all right, like where's somebody really trying to push that camera work? Like where's somebody?
Well, there's nothing really on TV. Like that's why I think. I mean, there's a whole argument, TV versus film. I'm like, I'll admit, like there's some decent stuff on TV, but I mean, it's still a writer's medium. Like there's nobody really pushing the aesthetic on TV. I mean, there's a couple examples, but like still, I'm like, it hasn't matched. Even like what's in like kind of like a not great movie. Like I'm still like, oh, they're still doing a little bit more with the camera here than they're doing on this TV show, which I'll admit, like Mad Men might be a much better thing than whatever movie. But I'm like, they haven't. It's like. That's not a great example. That was actually a pretty interesting show aesthetically, but still, like you're not even on like the best TV show. There, like the visual language of it is still pretty plain.
Yeah, I think it's supposed to be though.
But now movies have taken that like the cue from TV, and like they're also pretty bland across the board. And then when you have stuff like the Marvel Universe, and again, I'm not just bringing because it's comic book related, but it's like, well, they are now the force. They are now like the biggest studio. They are the thing everyone's emulating.
Yeah,
which is nuts. I would never have thought of that. Like, would you in 2008? If you told like 10 years from now, Marvel will own everything and everyone will emulate them?
Oh no, I wouldn't have thought that. Not in 2008. But after I saw Avengers, I had an idea. Like, they was able to put 5 movies. They were able to make a movie into a TV show. And that's what, like, I'm like, yo, people complaining, but like, yo, you just know the Infinity War is just episode 19. Like, you ain't gonna get the payoff to episode 20. You watch TV. Like, we got Ant-Man to get through, and we got Captain Marvel. You ain't getting the payoff till next May. Like, it's the end of the season. Like, y'all, like, they made a season TV, and it feels like television. Like,
well, that's a funny. That's a criticism I still hear about The Dark Knight is that oh, they should have made it into like 2 movies.
No.
And I'm always like, no. It's like, because it actually ends its story. Like, it's a complete story. Like, a big problem is so many movies. Now people did this before, but ever since the Marvel shit, now it's fucking just, it's fair game now, because everyone's like, we're going to turn this into 8 movies. What could have been 1 movie? Because it's like, people just assume they're getting sequels when they make movies now. Like, it's like, yeah, it's like, well, no, you shouldn't assume. You should tell your whole story. Like, you shouldn't. I remember Nolan says, like, I try not to leave anything on the table. Like, if something I want to do, I'll do it. Like, if I'm clearly not doing it, it must not be good enough to do. And I feel like, and people have complained, there should have been more connections between the movies. But I like the fact that you can watch Batman Begins as a full movie. There's no, you can watch The Dark Knight too, and this is really rare. It's the only superhero movie I can really think of, especially it's like a second in a series, that like really delves into the world. Like, there was no need to set up Batman. Batman exists. He's there at the beginning, and like you're literally in Gotham City, and you're dealing with like the minutia of Gotham City in a way you could never do in a lot of these other movies, because there's too much setup and things you need to worry about. And this movie kind of just goes, and like you can watch A Dark Knight without having seen Batman Begins, and I think you'll pick up everything pretty well. Like it's a full story. Like, I don't think you need. I mean, I guess Rises you kind of need to have seen the other ones, but I think it's still kind of.
You really don't. Like, I really think what the Nolan Batman films do, with the exception of Batman Begins, and I think Batman Begins is different because at that point we never had an origin movie for Batman. All the movies,
even origin movies in general were pretty rare.
Yeah, like it's just it was just at the point where it's just like, yo, like we all know what Batman is. That's it. Like, you don't need to explain anything. You watch The Dark Knight Rises, that could be the first one. You could have missed Batman Begins, but you know who Batman is. You know who the Joker is.
And you can pick up, okay, there was a guy Dent that did something bad.
Yeah, like,
there was
okay.
a League of Shadows. All right, I got it.
Two-Face, all right, Two-Face. Like, yeah, like, yeah, when you watch Rises, it's like, okay, Batman. Oh, this Catwoman. I know who Catwoman is. All right, Batman, he look kind of old and washed. Like, all right, he getting himself back together. This Bane guy, he talks funny. Like, okay, he beats the brakes off of him. Batman pulls himself together. He saves everybody. And he has a happy life. Like, I don't even know. Like, it had everything you need. Like, Alfred's in it. You know who Alfred is. Even if you don't know who Alfred is, it's like, oh, it's Michael Caine. Michael Caine takes care of the Batman. Oh, okay. All right. Like, and a lot of movies don't have that. I almost wish that some people would make a Superman movie now with that in mind, that like, yo, we all know who Superman is, man. We all know who Lois Lane is, man.
Well, I do think to most superheroes though, like the origin is actually like the thing that's great about the Dark Knight trilogies. I think it hits on the 3. Like, to me, there is only really like 3 or 4 interesting stories you can tell about a superhero, especially in a movie. You can either tell how they came to be, their greatest failure. That's what I think the Dark Knight. It's the moment where like he met his match, and like he had to rethink the whole idea. That's a classic. That's a classic hero trope. It's like, the moment of doubt.
Yeah.
And the third is like the rebirth or like the end. Mm-hmm. And I think that he hits on like those are really the only interesting. Like, think of all the superhero comics you've read, all the superhero media you've seen. Like, I think like that's pretty much what it comes down to. Like, those are the stories, especially that are most that lend themselves to like cinema. Those would be the stories. And I think that's a big reason the Marvel stuff is so uninteresting to me, because it's kind of like just dealing with like the day-to-day. Like, all right, I guess this is what's happening now. Like, maybe that's fascinating. I can see why that could be interesting in a comic book that has to come out every month. But as a movie, like as a film, like it has to resonate to a little bit of like the hero story. Like, you have to find the way that connects to that in some way. And there's only so many things that like speak. It's like, okay, this hero is announcing itself. It's being born. That's a movie. Yeah. It's like, here's that hero going up against his greatest foe, and he has to rethink the whole idea of becoming a hero. That's a fucking movie. All right, this hero went away. He's coming back, and then he's going to go away for good. That's a fucking movie. And it's like, I don't think like, oh, Batman, fucking just foils a small crime or whatever, and like, and does people like, oh, there's not enough detective work and stuff. It's like, well, I don't know how much that stuff really lends itself to like a great film. Like, you can use it as an element from here to there. And I think he does quite a bit of stuff in these movies to really say, like, he's not. I think he is using his brain.
He does the gun. He does the bullet stuff.
This is a separate point I'm going to bring up because it's I don't know if we've talked about. Like, we're all over the place here. I didn't take notes, so we're all over the place. Yeah. But like one thing I think is also like a real miscalculation in how people interpret these Batman. They say like, oh, Bruce is like dumb. Like, he needs everybody to do stuff for him. And I'm like, nope, you just don't understand what you're watching. Like, especially in The Dark Knight. Now, I rewatched it a whole bunch of times. Bruce knows everything that's going on all of the time.
Yes.
It's how he uses it. He lets people underestimate him. And that's how he's able to pull off what he does. Like, in the movie, like, the whole thing with, like, he already knew about sonar. He just needed Lucius Fox to put the thing together.
Yes.
And then he ran. The whole movie, he's doing all of this in his spare time. He's putting together a fucking network of, like, think about that. Think how hard that is to do. He put that together in his spare time. Like, it's done. It's done at the beginning. Like, the second he shows him at the Vice, he goes and puts together that network, gets that gun, does all that in his spare time.
Yeah,
he's ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
Like the scene at the beginning where he's asleep at the board. It's like he already did that. He did all of this in his spare time. But he's appearing to the public that he's slovenly and just doesn't know, doesn't care. He's a spoiled rich boy. Even to Lucius, he's playing a character because he doesn't want him to actually know everything he's doing.
Yeah.
And like, so the idea that he's so dumb and he needs everybody to do stuff for him, he doesn't put stuff. It's like, no, he knows he's really smart. He puts stuff together, but he also knows that like he needs to have a little bit. Sometimes he needs help. He needs people to do stuff for him to get this stuff to work at a certain level. So it's better if he plays dumb than reveal all his cards to everybody.
Yeah.
So it's like, so the public, there's a persona, but even among his confidants, he's still playing a character. And like, to me, that's something I think if you watch the movie a few times, you see it in all the movies. Like, even in Begins, like, he already knew the whole plan of how to knock, Rutger Hauer's character out of the company.
He
knew it right when he saw him. He's like, "This is what we'll do," and it's like, and he's always usually right. Like, even like you mentioned, like the scene with the surveillance unit when Lucius sees it, like he already knows like what Lucius's reaction is going to be, and he knows he shouldn't have this thing, but he knows he kind of needs it to complete this mission. But it's like, the audience probably like, oh, this Batman is a fascist, but like you can't count him out. He's already has a contingency plan for that. It's like, nope, this thing is just going to explode itself at the end.
Yeah. Once he puts his code in, it's going to destroy itself. So like, it's just like,
see, Lucius is there like, this guy lost his mind now.
Yeah, he's gone. Like,
oh no, he knew exactly what he was doing the whole time. And it's like, that's the thing. And it's like, if they do it in Rise, it's not as well. But like the idea that he would have the, like that he, fix the autopilot by himself, things like that. Like, but they just kind of assume that, like, everyone just kind of assumes, oh yeah, he wouldn't do it. And then you understand, like, this is how this guy gets by doing all this stuff. Because everybody underestimates him. And they don't assume he'll do any of this stuff. But he does it. That's how he gets it done. Because he does it under the radar.
Yeah.
So it's like if the movie was constantly showing him doing these things, I think it would take away from, like, that sly aspect of it. And I think it's the same for the Joker. Like, people talk about, like, well, first of all, I don't think you need to explain why the Joker is able to do his schemes. He's a fucking Joker. Like, that's why he does the scheme. Like, to me, that's the thing. I'm like, I can't even talk to you if, like, that's an issue you had with the movie. Like, well, how does a Joker pull off all these schemes? He's the fucking Joker. But I'll even give you an explanation. Like, I was saying, one of my favorite shots in the whole movie, in the whole series, is the opening shot of the Joker on the street.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's also rare movies, like, it's the camera just completely staying still, like moving in. It's one of the rare moments that the movie is not in motion. But that shot of the Joker is very reminiscent of a shot in John Carpenter's Halloween, where you see Michael Myers just during the day standing in someone's yard, and like he's not a threat. He's still him, still the guy. He's still out there. Like, and I always scared. Like, that was like one of the scariest shots ever in that movie for me, was that shot of him just out there in the daytime, just standing there. And I think that was an influence on this shot. It was just like, okay, like they show you a wide shot of the whole city moving. You can even see stuff like, there's visual stuff to show you stuff from the last movie, like the fact that the train is fixed and running, you can see in the distance. Like, Gotham has been cleaned up. It's working. Like, this Batman thing has been working, at least temporarily. Same thing you even see, like, later on, like Jonathan Crane is just like a low-level drug dealer now. He's lost his power. He's just a street. It's like that whole beginning sequence is telling you what's happened in the year since. It's all told visually, too. And it's like, I'm like, I don't think it gets any credit. I don't think people point that out. But you see the Joker standing there, and it's like, yeah, the Joker has been in plain sight this entire time. He's put all this shit in motion already. He knows how this is going to go. That's how he did it. All this stuff has already been pre-planned. And which is great because it's an inversion of what he says. Like, I don't have a plan. It's like, no, he has a plan. He hasn't think he's doing it, but it's like, that shot is a scary because it's like he's out there. And like, I guess that's obviously a thing that resonated with a lot of people in like a post 9/11 world was like, oh yeah, like a lot of these, like, you know, these terrorist attacks, they were happening in plain sight because nobody was really like paying attention. Like nobody was thinking somebody could be doing all this stuff. And when you're not thinking of that, it's like that people can get away with it. But the flip side is like, do you want to live in a world where you're paranoid and in fear of everybody at the same time too? So it's like a really interesting dichotomy. And it's like one of the first shots in the movie. There's no dialogue, no anything, but like to me, that one shot conveys all of that information.
Man, that whole first sequence shows you so much information for like, I think the entire thing of the movie, like everything when you to the point where the Joker takes off his mask and he talks to the bank manager who's, you know, for the mob or whatever, and then it just goes, it gets in the bus and just drives off in the middle of the other buses, so no one ever knew there was a robbery at all. That's what I was like, everything to me is set up like a joke. And that's another thing I don't think people catch. Like, the Joker is literally telling you jokes the entire movie, except he's not being funny. It's like it's a.
Well, sometimes it's pretty funny.
No, it's funny. No, but yeah, nah, he got some. Oh, he got some
but the
bangers.
Jokes he's telling are cruel, like cruel truths. Like they're funny if you think about, like, you know. But it's I mean, he himself is pretty funny though.
Yo, he's hilarious. Like Heath Ledger all day in that. Like it's funny. Even his plans, if you can really look at it, it's kind of set up like a joke. Like the punch, like he gets out and it's the punchline. And it's just like, what do you mean he didn't plan it? Like, people still get to the fact that he says he didn't plan anything, that everything is chaotic. I'm like, fam, that's why he beats Batman.
That's a problem that people have with Nolan's movies, that I think they miss the point. They assume because somebody says something that that's what the movie is saying.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, there's actually a whole bunch of other shit going on. You're just not paying attention to it and that goes back to the whole thing from The Prestige. It's like you put people's eyes over here on the thing they think they're supposed to be looking at. They're not looking at what's really going on. And like, I don't know how you can see The Dark Knight multiple times and still think everything the Joker said or our character says is true, or like what we're supposed to be focusing on. It's pretty obvious, like there's more going on.
Yeah, like even when you get to the end, and it's like Batman has him, and it's just like, yo, I can't kill. Like he's like, we can do this forever. Like he truthfully enjoys this whole thing with Batman. And then you get to the point where Batman thinks it's kind of over, the boats and blow up, and he's like, yeah, your boy Harvey, though. It's just like, and then you get to the point, you get this whole thing with Harvey, it's just like, yo, Joker.
Well, I think that's like one of the keys to the movie, too, in understanding Batman. Like, Batman, I mean, above all you've seen, he's not a cynical person. Like, he really doesn't think, like, and he gets rewarded with the boat thing, and that, like, he really doesn't think the citizens will kill each other. And like that scene itself is like a really interesting questioning of like democracy, because it's, look how fast people are like to blow people up when like they don't have to put their finger on the trigger. Like both boats, I'm sure, would have voted to blow up the other one. Mm-hmm. But the second you put that in somebody's hands, it's a whole different ball game. And it's like the things people, like it goes back to Joker says, like it's the awful things people don't mind happening, like if it's a part of the plan or it doesn't affect them personally. It's like the second though it affects them and like the moral is on their head, they won't probably go through with it. And like people aren't taking personal accountability sometimes for the actions that, like, you know, I mean, you can't take personal accountability for the actions like your government takes and stuff, but you can be complicit in bad things without really, you know, without any kind of sweat off your back about it. And like in that moment, it's like it really kind of questions the idea of like, well, like, how effective is this when, like, people have no personal stake in the decisions made about other people? And it's like, you know, it's kind of, maybe people think it's a little loaded to be thrown in a superhero movie, but it's an interesting thing. At least that's always what I took that scene to be about.
Yeah.
Like, it's a whole different ball game when the power's in your hands, and like you have it, and it's like, and I don't think people think about that enough sometimes.
Yeah, like sometimes the choices that are made, sometimes the choices that are made for you by the people you put in power, like people.
Well, even like the thing you're saying, like, oh, they're just a bunch of prisoners on that boat, and like they had their, who cares about them?
Yeah.
It's like, well, one of those, you don't know their situations, you don't know why people are there, you don't, maybe they made a mistake and now they're, but it's like the only guy who had the balls to like stand up to this and point out the hypocrisy of everybody else was a prisoner, and he went and said like, no, I'm not going to do this, and that's what's that one event is what inspires everybody else to not go through with it, because they're like, well, they didn't blow us up, so it's just wrong to do this, and like that ends it. But I'm just saying, like, that's like that scene. I said like that's a lot. It's a lot for a superhero movie to have on its shoulders. But I think the fact that the movie has that happen just like in its third act, like all this action is going on around it. I'm like, it just says something. Like, there's something about this movie it's built in a certain way that is holding everything, like Batman. Like, it's whatever you put on it, it kind of just takes it in, and it works. Like, imagine on paper if somebody told you, like, this is going to be in the finale of the biggest Batman movie of all time. You'd probably be like, yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'd go with that. But it works, man. It fucking works. I've seen it a million times. It's never a moment where I'm like, this is a bad choice or something. I'm always like, this works. This is great.
Yeah, man. It's still I still think it's the best superhero film ever made.
It's the best one based on an established character. I'd probably say RoboCop is the best superhero movie. This is probably
because I don't really consider him a superhero, but I just like he is. Yeah, in a lot of ways, he is a superhero. He is the tragic.
And I think that movie also too is
that's
like
a beautifully cynical. That movie is a beautiful. Like, those 80s action movies were saying something about our culture that, that is gone now. Like, I don't know. They would just let them do anything in the 80s, bro. But yeah, like, I really like RoboCop a lot. But, like,
I think that's also, like, a forebearer to this movie. Like, I think that movie, this is a movie from, like, it's the first superhero-themed movie I've seen since then that dealt into those kind of topics in any serious way since then. And there is a bit of satire in The Dark Knight too.
Yeah.
It's not like, it is kind of like you're saying, there is a joke at some of these things' expense, like, like things. So it's like, it does have that. It's obviously not R-rated or whatever, but it is pretty heavy for what it is. What was I going to say? We haven't talked about Harvey Dent and Aaron Eckhart's performance as Dent much yet, but he's really, like, his character has become a lot more interesting to me over time, especially in light of the fact that, like, I think there was, I remember people saying too, like, his turn at the end, like, it comes out of nowhere. I'm like, it really doesn't. Especially when you really watch this movie, like, there's a lot of signs early on that Harvey isn't what they're saying he is. And, like, I think people say, people keep saying he's the White Knight. I'm like, yeah, they keep saying that. It doesn't mean he actually was. Or like, it's... Oh, go ahead, say everything.
No, I was like, it's also this entire thing is he's like, we know that there's crooked police officers. And he was in IA, and his job was to go against the police. So the police officers already don't trust the district attorney. So I think that's a.
Oh no! It's one thing I noticed that I never noticed before when I watched it. Just how fucking Harvey Dent was like the king of pettiness.
Oh, beautiful, bro!
Is the scene when he first meets Gordon and he doesn't get him a chair?
Nope.
And you see just Gordon looking around the room like, is this motherfucker really not going to get me a chair? And it's like one of the funniest fucking things, and I never noticed it until I just watched it now.
Yo, and
he has to go out and, like, pull a chair out from, like, under another desk and, like, bring it over. It's fucking funny as shit.
He's super petty in the whole, like, that's why I like it, because almost at the end, like, Joker pushes him through revenge and vengeance, but it's like, it also plays on his natural pettiness, because it's like, when he goes after the police officers, it's like it's super petty. Like, he just sneaks up on him and be like, hey, yo, what's going on? Oh, how you doing? Oh, you look at my face. Oh, you look at my, oh, okay. Yeah, you know why my face is like this, right? Yeah. You drove me to the wrong spot, didn't you? Mm-hmm, yeah. Sorry, I'm going to take this coin right here. I'm going to flip it. Like, I was like...
Well, even, like, the one with Maroney... And he's like, when he's like, oh, I thought you said I was good. Like, oh, you are, but not your driver. Boom! Like, it's like just such a shitty thing to do. Like, you give this guy like all this hope in the minute that he's gonna live.
And he just buckles up because it's just like somehow it's just like my rage is gonna keep me alive, so whatever.
But there's hints though early on that like, and I think maybe people just didn't pick up on them. But like, there's hints that like Dent isn't quite what he seems to be. Like early on, like he talks about like pulling strings to get like seats at restaurants and stuff, and like using his power as like he's not as like he's not as true blue as you think. Like he's taken he's taken the perks that come along with the job. And like the fact he's dating like his subordinate and like things like that are a little like, I guess now I just seem a little questionable. I mean, it didn't bother me at the time, but it's like it's just another thing of just like, okay, that's another layer there possibly.
Yeah. People are questionable.
Also like when he has that conversation, like the big one actually is like when he has that conversation with Bruce Wayne at the restaurant, and he's like, and he talks about how much he like admires Caesar. Like it's like that's kind of a sign like, oh, maybe this guy wasn't like maybe this guy wasn't what we thought he was. Like I never see people bring that up, and I'm like, that right there tells you like this guy has a very skewed version of like history and percent, like that he like again that line, the fucking line. I guess nothing has become more fucking prescient, I think, than that line. The you either die a hero or live long enough
to be the villain, bro.
Villain. Like if there's any story about the next 10 years, it's that one. But there's a couple of, like even like I know that there was like. This is how much like I obsessively like. How much did you obsessively follow about the making of this movie, or did you just go in cold?
Nah. I was watching. Remember how they had like the little news joints with Anthony Michael Hall?
Well, that's the thing. I think this had the first. I guess this was one of the first times I remember hearing the term like viral.
Yeah,
campaign.
yo.
And like, if you really look at that, it's probably one of the best, if not the best, of these like in the modern era. Like, where they really used every asset available to like promote this movie. And I remember that game, like I was playing that game. I remember there was hints, like they would show you like a scene of the movie if you did this thing, and like there was, like you said, there was all those like additional clips. There's on like the Blu-ray and stuff you can watch. There's like hours of things they shot, like of interviews with minor characters in the movie. Because I remember like when I remember watching those, and then like when I saw it, like you would see little references to like this other politician that Dent was going up against or something like that. I remember that was a they had, I think actually they got the guy from RoboCop, maybe it was Ronnie Coxon, to play the guy in the fucking ads or whatever, which is pretty funny. And it had like the game, like I remember just fun, but I was so obsessed with this movie that I actually tried to audition for a small role in it.
Wow.
They actually sent me sides and shit like that. So I had these sides, and some of those actually wound up being scenes in the movie. One of them, though, and I'm not sure if this was a fake out or they rewrote this, but the scene, I guess it was this was the sides to audition for the character that David Dosterman, I guess is the actor's name, the guy who's Thomas Schiff, the paranoid schizophrenic guy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On those sides, that was a much more extreme scene, and apparently initially, or it was a fake out, like they weren't gonna, or they shot it. But I'd heard this too, that they shot any scene involving Harvey Dent, they shot like 5 or 6 different ways. And this scene that I had, like he literally shot the guy like in the knees.
He tortured him, right?
Yeah, tortured him. So it was like, and I remember being like, holy shit. I was like, what is this like? I was like, this is like a pretty hardcore scene or whatever. I don't know if that was just a fake out side, like they put out there to be like, yeah, this could be a scene. But all the other sides that I had ended up in the movie like exactly as they were. So I wonder if that's a version they shot, maybe with never the intention of putting it in, but just as a thing to be like, okay, we'll show like, maybe they were trying to decide how far they wanted to show Harvey going before the turn.
Yeah.
But the scene they went with, I mean, is still pretty damning. I mean, I guess he does have the trick coin and shit, but it is a pretty, like, it's just showing, like, okay, this guy is not as true blue as you think. Like, there's a much darker side to this guy. But I think initially, I think the script was going to push that much further, and they kind of cut back on that.
They pulled back, yeah. It's like the build up, because I didn't play the little like alternate reality game that back then it became kind of like a thing, because they also did it with like Lost back then, like you put all these
Well, it
pieces
was like
together.
Cloverfield and Dark
Cloverfield?
Knight one were happening concurrently, and they're probably still the two best examples of somebody pulling those things off.
And but I remember like you could watch the stuff for the Dark Knight with Anthony Michael Hall like on demand. Like each week they would have like a new like episode of the show, and I was watching it, and I was like, "Oh, this joint gonna be hype." And I remember when the first image of Heath Ledger as the Joker came out, and everybody was hating.
Well, it was in that game. It was like a bad.
Yeah.
They had to like that image. It was like a little piece of the image came each time, like each level you got through or whatever.
I was in as soon as I saw that face, I was like, "This is gonna be amazing." Like I was in it, and then like the Gotham Knight came out, the anime that was basically the Animatrix, but for Batman. It was showing you like all the different stuff that happens in between that year of Batman Begins before the Dark Knight. And I was like, oh man, they really setting up the gangsters, because that's like if you watch the movie, like the gangsters are just there. But if you watch that, you already have like a built-in like idea of how each of the gangsters are and how they react off of each other. It's like yeah, that was the best build up. Like,
well, even the trailers, like you remember like the teaser trailer, like they just showed the Joker and he's had to laugh. Mm-hmm. That was it. That was all they gave you. It was just like there was no actual scene from the movie. It was just the monologue. Yeah. It was just him being like, like I knew the mob wouldn't go down without a fight, but like this is different, and like it's a Michael Caine thing. Mm-hmm. And then at the end, like they had the Bat logo breaking very steadily as it was going along, and then when he says like some men just want to watch the world burn, like it broke, and like a piece of a Joker card came, and you just heard the Joker's laugh, and it was like Dark Knight next time. I think I watched that like 1,000 times. I was like, holy shit!
Early YouTube just be like
I went to see movies just because I knew that was in front of it, and I wanted just to see it like in a theater. I'm like, oh, maybe there's like something I'm not seeing, like maybe there's like some subliminal scene in the background. And then when they dropped like the fucking the for real like trailer. But do you remember that, man? That was like I was like, what the fuck, man? This movie's gonna be like.
The sound was crazy. That's what I remember the most, cause like the sound, like I'm like, dang, like, oh, this is gonna be boom. And like you seeing like Batman on a motorcycle, and it's like, what is going on?
It was that trailer, and then there was a second trailer too, like that was actually pretty fucking cool. And I remember I actually got to see. I remember I went to New York Comic-Con, like 2008, and I went to like the Warner Brothers. This was still pretty quaint. Like They didn't have many movie things at the con yet, and the big thing was like I guess in Chicago they only did one panel. This is crazy. They did one panel on the movie anywhere, and it was at the Chicago Comic-Con.
Yeah,
and they had the whole cast, and Nolan was there and stuff, and they showed like a teaser of footage. Which I have. I mean, they put it out when they put I think when they put Batman Begins out on Blu-ray, it came with a separate disc that had this little featurette thing they showed. And it was just a barrage of footage. Like I don't think it even had any audio. It was just a whole bunch of clips. They hadn't even cut any footage yet. So this was like the first time they were showing anybody anything. And then I remember at New York Con, that was when it used to be in like April back then, right?
It was early. It was like
April or May or something like that.
It was like late winter. Because year they did it
late winter the next year. In 2009 is when it became winter.
No, I mean, one time they did it in February.
So, yeah, that was 09.
Okay,
09.
So yeah, it was like springtime. It was weird back then. It was all over the back.
But I remember it was like April or May, somewhere around there. I think we hung out at that con. Actually.
I think so. Like yeah.
But I don't think you came because you were at your table. So
I was at my table. I didn't go to the panel. I was
but I remember it was just they didn't say anybody was gonna be there. It was nothing like that. It was just a Warner Brothers panel, and I think Paul Levitz hosted it. And he came out and he said they were showing like I don't know, they were showing a couple things like DC Comics related or whatever. And then Paul Levitz came out and he gave a speech about like, oh, like he said, I've seen early version of the movie, it's amazing or whatever. And then he said, okay, we got something special for you guys, whatever. And they showed that second trailer, it started off with with Batman standing on the building in China or whatever, and he jumps off and like that, and it just started. And then it had because I was so like. You remember the time we were just jonesing for like anything, a
Peace.
fucking picture. I remember I had pictures like of on set fucking photography. Like I remember like I was like anything I could get. Like I remember was making friends with people in Chicago. I like, hey man, you get me a picture like set from this. Like I was insane. And I remember when they showed because I remember the first trailer had a lot of the Joker like talking and stuff, but it didn't have a lot of footage of him. And I think the second one had a lot of footage, and I think that was where they finally teased the shot of Two-Face, where he had the gun up against his head and shit.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the audience, like the fucking applause, like that this trailer got. I remember it was out of control, and they were supposed to move on with the panel, and they were like, "I think we got to show it again." So they showed the trailer a second time, whatever. And then I remember like being like, I was just like, holy shit! I remember like me and my friend John were just like, this is gonna be insane. I can't wait for this fucking movie. And then it was just like. I remember steadily. I mean, they had like a Domino's pizza like promotion, right? And like what was I can't remember like all this. I remember there was a thing there too. You can get like a Gotham like a replica of like the newspaper that they show in the movie. I remember they were giving that away, and like I'm trying to remember who had. I don't think they did toy promotions or anything with that, right? Like in tie-in to like. I remember they did for Batman Begins, and it was like a KFC or something like that.
Yeah, it was whack. It was like after that they figured out, I was like, yo, this movie really isn't like the toy movie. I
remember they did put out a line of toys. I remember I got a Joker figure that looked more like a Bruce Timm Joker.
Mm-hmm.
Then like I remember that was like one of the first toys like they released. But they're actually those toys. The Joker figure in particular, I remember being pretty hard to find. But so yeah, there was promotion. But I just remember like the lead up to that movie was insane. Like I've still never seen anything like that before. I mean, people go nuts. I get maybe I'm wrong though. Like maybe I'm just like because I'm not following any of this stuff anymore. So maybe I don't. Maybe it's crazier than it's ever been.
No,
but like
no, the internet's in a different place. Remember, like at this point. Twitter was like 6 months old, maybe a year. People wasn't using Twitter, but like tech nerds. There was no Instagram. Facebook didn't look like we barely just had the wall back then. YouTube was not the YouTube we think of now.
Yeah, Twitter didn't launch until I think after the movie had come out.
It was out before. It was out before.
Oh, but it wasn't a lot of people on there.
It was only tech nerds. So it's just like. This was to the point where I say, like, I watched the Gotham Tonight stuff on cable, on demand. So if you wanted to see something special, you're not going to go to your computer and throw up YouTube just to watch something. Like, you were still looking for, like, posters, Entertainment Tonight, E still mattered. Like, you look at the websites, you still have message boards. Like
all the entertainment shows would just show the trailer on their show to get like more viewers.
Yeah.
Like I remember like on the Ellen show or something, they showed like the trailer for like no reason. Like it was just like they just kept like it was anything. Like, you put the Dark Knight related something in your show, like people like me were just gonna tune in to see if there was something new I hadn't seen before.
Yeah, it was a completely different.
Well, I remember there's an interview with Wally Pfister where he talks about like how the whole entertainment media changed between like Dark Knight and Rises.
Yes.
He says like when Dark Knight was coming out, like people just wanted to see things. Like and he's like, I can understand that. Like I can understand fans that like just want to see things. Like they're so passionate about it they want to see it. But he's like somewhere between that and like when Rises had come out, there had been like a very cynical element to it. Where like people were trying to like there was like we have to get this thing on our site to get clicks and get money, and like people were and he was like that was different. Like he's like that wasn't quite like it wasn't coming from a fan per se. He's like I get if somebody like is a fan of something and they want to see something, but it was a very different thing, and like it kind of transformed in between those movies, and it's gotten only way worse since then. But like I remember that too. Like there was this whole industry kind of now propped up just to like. Shit talk early set photos and things like that. Like back then people were just happy to see whatever they can see. Like I'm sure there was definitely people talking shit, but like it wasn't I don't know, it was a little people were just like happy to be a part of it. Like to be like I just want to see things. Like I just want to see the movie because I'm so enthusiastic about this movie.
Yeah,
like I'm so enthusiastic about Batman. I just want to see what they're doing.
You find out they're like, "Oh, they're shooting in Chicago." And then you try to find everybody online, from Chicago, and it's like, "Oh, did you walk past the set? Did you do this? Like all these things that people weren't like. It wasn't super easy to get pictures texted to everybody.
Well, I remember it begins. They had shot part of that in New York, and I remember a friend of mine being like, he was like across the street from like the building they were shooting, and he was like, "I know you're a big Batman guy. I thought you'd be interested." But like, it wasn't the hysteria. Like people were cautiously optimistic about Batman Begins. They're like, "Oh, let's see." Like interesting director choice, like interesting direction, but like people have been burned on Batman so much by that point that they were just like, all right, let's wait and see. And then like as the movie had come out, and especially when it hit video, then it become like a phenomenon. But like this movie was something different. And there was so much. And then when like Ledger unfortunately had passed away and stuff, like that really did also add like another legend on top of it. Of just like, okay, like this movie is so good. Like the guy in it is not even alive. Yeah. Like before this thing is coming out. Like, and that, I mean, that kind of haunted like The Crow. I remember when I was a kid, like, because there was an idea of like, oh, this guy died on set. Like, I can't wait to see this movie. It was just kind of morbid and shitty. But like, I do remember it added, because like, remember, did you see like when they put the opening footage was in front of like I Am Legend? Did you go to see that?
I did for that purpose.
That was
in IMAX.
The second half of that movie is not so good, but the first half.
Yeah.
But like I remember me and my friend like went to see that, and it was nuts, and like and we were just like, this is fucking crazy, because like not a lot of people went to see, like, because was only so many IMAX theaters, and like still there's only a handful of actual IMAX theaters, and I remember being like, if you were lucky enough to go, like you were like the fucking, it was like in fucking 300, like the campfire story and shit. You're just telling everybody like, oh man, it's amazing. Like he's there. They had these clown and like I remember like a couple people had seen. Then I remember somebody had like snuck in a fucking camera, and there was like a really shitty version of it on like in the early days of YouTube. You can see, and that was like back before like. I don't think the Warner Brothers or companies cared that. Like, they didn't really care that much about what was going on the internet yet.
They didn't even know, probably.
Yeah, so, like, they didn't take it down. So I remember we would just rewatch that fucking opening, like, over and over and over again, like, leading up to the movie. And then I remember when we went to, like, the opening night, I remember there was, like, a bunch of my friends had only seen it on the computer, like, in that, and then, like, when they saw the huge fucking, I remember my one friend was like, holy shit, like, right when it started, he had never seen an image that big before, and it was really something else. Like, again, I know we just probably sound like a bunch of old people, like, oh, remember back in my day, but it's like, I really can't express to anybody that wasn't around the time, like, how different this was.
Like, I'll drop this on myself. I remember that when I first saw this movie, I went home and I downloaded a cam. Well, I didn't even get a cam. I looked up on getting like an editor's copy that somehow leaked on the internet, and I watched that shit like every day. And then I was still like, yo, who trying to go? Oh, it's gonna be IMAX to like this weekend. Like, who trying to go? And I still went to go see. Like, I paid for that movie more times than I should have, because I was not doing well financially.
One that, like, but I remember like. Well, I never am, but I still pay obscene amounts of money to see movies.
But yeah, I'm sitting there.
But I remember it was like, that was one of those, like, you went to see it with every friend you had.
Yeah.
Like, if there was an excuse to go see it again, you took it. Because I remember, like, I saw it opening night, and that was insane. And then I remember, like, I went back on Friday, saw it, like, in the regular theater. Then I took my sister and her husband on, like, Saturday to see it again. And then, like, I remember I took my mom and dad to see it in the IMAX, like, during the week, like, in the afternoon. It was still fucking sold out or whatever. It was still packed to the gills. And, like, anytime any friend of mine, like, oh, somebody was like, oh, man, I haven't seen it yet. I'm like, oh, you want to go? Like, excuse I had to go. I remember even my whole friends that I went the first night, we went just to see it in a regular theater again, like, 3 weeks later, and it was still packed. Like, it didn't let up at all. And I remember even going in the fall, and, like, it was one, like, I never got an argument from anybody, too. Like, oh, yeah, aren't we seeing this too many times? It was just like, yeah, sure.
All right, let's go. Like, yeah. It was amazing, because I think that's probably, like, around the last time movies would stay in longer than, like, 2 weeks.
And, like, yeah, you weren't just assuming the movie would be out to own in a couple of months. It was like, oh, they might hold this, like, a long time. Because, like,
the Blu-ray took forever to come out.
Well, it came out around Christmas time, right?
It felt like an eternity. Like, I was like, what is this? I need this.
I gotta see if I still... there was a recent quote from Michael Jai White. I think, who said, like, originally he had a bigger part in the movie and they changed it. And I'm like, I have the original script somewhere, and like, I just don't happen to remember him having a bigger role in it. But like, I'll take his word for it if he said that. But I don't know.
I don't know if he was supposed to die as quickly. I think maybe he probably had like 5 more minutes, maybe. But like, he died pretty quick. But I can see that. Like, if he's really probably on screen. Let's say 2.5 minutes max, maybe. But like, if he was supposed to get 5 minutes, I could see, like, I was supposed to be in there a lot longer. Like, that's probably true. But like, it is like, hey, it is what it is.
Well, it is always that scene always did kind of feel like an odd edit. Like, there was a little bit more we didn't like that was supposed to be there. And then he is just like gone from the movie. So I am kind of curious what, I don't know. I'll look. Maybe I'll find. I'll see if I can find, because I know the script that they put up for the Oscar season. They put it out online. Like, you could download it. But I think that was like, it seemed to be changed to reflect the movie that was done. I'll see, because like I said, I had sides that were very different than what was in the movie for a couple of scenes. So I'm like, it's possible that like it was a bit of a different movie they went in to shoot. But like, I don't know. I know it's there's a scene or two like that I know like were in it that they didn't use. Like, I know there's a scene at the end of the was it the one, like, people also point out it's a plot hole all the time. The scene where the Joker goes into like the fundraiser.
Yeah. And
like, it just ends with like, Batman saves Rachel, and then it cuts to the next scene. People are like, well, what happened with the Joker? And it's like, well, it's clear
he left.
The thing is, I'm like, apparently there was a scene that showed them leave, and they were like, well, why are you leaving? And then he says, like, trust me, like, it's part of the plan or something like that.
Yeah.
And I can see why they cut that, but I'm like, you don't need it. It's like, I don't understand how you guys don't understand. Like, there's like a whole thing. Like, that's the moment the Joker really becomes fascinated with Batman in a different way.
Yeah.
Batman's not in the room. He doesn't give a shit. Like, so he left. Like, It's not about, Joker is not someone who's just gonna go terrorize people for no reason. Like, I was like, oh, if Batman is gone, he's like, okay, and then he gets like, oh, he jumped out after her. He cares that much, huh?
Yeah.
All right.
There's something there.
Gonna tweak that plan now. And that's what he leaves. So it's like, it made sense to me at the time, but like, you still hear people like, this is ridiculous. He just left the whole room of people, whatever, after. I'm like, yeah, I don't know. I'm saying, like, I think thematically it works. Like, I don't know why people need that explained, but whatever.
They need everything explained, because if you don't see it, it didn't happen, or they don't understand why. They need to be force fed. Like, it's the whole thing. Like, if there's no one around, if a tree falls and no one's around, does it make a sound? Logic is, yes, it makes a fucking sound. But people are like, I wasn't there. I don't know. I ain't see it. I'm like, okay. Alright. Here you go. That's where we are.
Tune in tomorrow, same bat time,